The sequence that William sent me was a Miraculum, and so when I loaded it, imported the preview from that sequence, and I've just renamed it this one Miraculum, and I went and made a copy. So what we'll be editing here is a copy, which is what I would recommend you do if you've imported something from Visualizer. Leave a copy of the original and start and then make a copy of it and edit the copy. Okay, so if I double click on that, that opened on my other screen. So here is William's preview, and there's a lot going on here. If we flip over to statistics, it's got 234 props. So, looks to me like this is as it was just coming out of Visualizer. It's just a straight import. Kind of you get some of the odd lights in strange positions, like on these arches here. So that's just what it does when it comes in from Visualizer. So one of the I think one of the issues that William had, well, first of all, let me back up one more thing. So the very first thing that I did when I received the sequence from William was I went into the sequence and checked to see, I went to sequence, manage archived props, to see if anything had gotten archived, and there was nothing archived. So that's first thing you want to do as a check. And so that was good. That meant all of the props were capable of controlling lights. The second thing I did was I opened the preview and checked for the green check marks up here. So there are no channel conflicts or other warnings. So that means that the preview is in good shape. So that just means we've got some of these maybe more subtle issues going on. So William in his display has a mix of pixels and traditional lights. You can, if you flip over here to the string summary, you can see, see if we click on the lights column, so it's sorted by that column, then you can see we've got all these channel per color, some dumb RGB, and then we've got pixels, things that are pixels. So we've got a spare window matrix, the wreaths, chroma flakes, garage matrix, left and right, and pixel mini trees, and candy cane spinner, and arches. Okay, so so flipping back to design, then one of the obvious issues when I was going through here was these matrices. So if we look at the garage matrix left, so the one highlighted in yellow here. Typical of coming in from Visualizer, it says individual strings. And if we double click on one of these strings, you see we've got 24 nodes per string, and there are 12 strings on the left and 12 strings on the right. And then we've got a group shown in blue to group all those strings together. So if I double click on this garage matrix left, so it's got the 12 strings in the group, but the key issue over here is that if you look at the arrangement, is it's set to use preview, and it's set to lowest resolution. So one of the things, really helpful things here, people may not know about, is to look at the size. So this is a clue that about what your group is going to look like. And so this group is effectively like a prop that is 3 pixels wide and 6 pixels high. So if I were to go and try to run an effect on here, it's only going to give me effectively 18 pixels to run my effect on. And even though it's running on many more pixels than that, you end up with a very blocky looking effect. So, and if you'll notice, I'm going to cancel out just for a second. If we go back and look at the strings run vertically here. So we've got 12 vertical strings of 24. So when we, in order to get this looking right, all we have to do is change the arrangement. A horizontal stack is one that's stacks all these props left to right. And so if I click on that, we'll see now our size has gone to 12 by 24, which is exactly what it should be, 12 strings of 24. So, and this says the checked item should be ordered left to right. And we already, as we were clicking, saw the string 1 was on the left. So this is now all fixed just by changing the radio button from use preview to being a horizontal stack. And if you had questions about, if you can't remember what all these arrangement settings mean, you can always click on this help button here. And here we are in group definition. And this kind of gives you a visual representation of what the horizontal stacks and vertical stack and nested, what they all do. So, right, so horizontal stack, and now that matrix is fixed. And it should display effects just fine. So similarly, now if we go to the garage matrix right, over here, let's look on string 1 is on the left, string 2, 3, 4. Right, so.
Hello?
Hello.
I'm sorry, this is William. I had a malfunction.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Did you have a question?
No, I'm just making sure I'm working.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. Okay, so on the garage matrix right, so now we just need to do the same thing, switch from use preview to horizontal stack. Now we've got a matrix that's 12 by 24. So now that one's fixed. All right, so, and then we've got one more matrix over here. Oop, that selected the wrong thing. Let's zoom in just a little bit. And there we go. So this is our spare window matrix. And if we look here, these strings are arranged horizontally. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down. 16. So if we click on here, again, this is set to use previews, and it's a size, it shows us 4:3. So again, we would get really blocky looking effects on if we used it at this group to create effects as it is. So since the strings are arranged horizontally, we're going to set this one to be a vertical stack because they're one on top of the other. Now, the one funky thing about horizontal vertical stack is items should, it says down here, items should be ordered bottom to top. And we saw that DMX Pixels 1 was at the top. So we have to, we would have to reverse the order of these. Oh. Right, so, because we have to have them ordered bottom to top. So, right, so, and if we didn't do these, what would happen? Right, your effects would be upside down. So that might be okay for some effects, but obviously not for others. So uh, 14, 15. Okay, so now we've got them arranged bottom to top. Okay, so save that. So now the three matrices are I think that was the biggest problem with this. Now, you can do some other things here that are just kind of more cosmetic in nature. So one of the things about Visualizer is it'll tell you it's creating an arch or creating a matrix, for example, or creating a tree, and it does in fact do that, but what it actually stores, the data that it stores, is just information about the strings. It doesn't remember that it was creating an arch or what you created was a matrix or anything. So when it gets imported to S5, it takes the information it gets from Visualizer, which is just about a bunch of strings. So but we can fix some of these things. So for example, if we wanted this to be an actual arch, we could double click on that, and notice it's got 32 pixels. It starts on, and when we're changing things here, we want to make sure we keep things on the same channels and same number of pixels. So this is an arch, so I can change it to arch. Now this was 32, and the starting location was left. The channels have stayed the same. We just need to set the number of pixels back to 32, and we save that. Now the other thing that happens here is it changes to a great big huge arch, but we can move it back down and maybe place it over another arch so we can get it about the same size. All right, so that looks pretty good. So now if we click here, we've got an arch. Now from a sequencing perspective, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but it does look a little better. But let me show you. So if I click on this arch over here, I do edit and show layout. Here's the layout. So this is what the, when you create an effect, this is what the effect is going to, the arrangement of pixels that the effect is going to see. And so it sees just one straight line of pixels. So this was the old way. And if we go to the new native S5 Arch, we do layout view, notice it's exactly the same. So from a creating effects point of view, doesn't this particular change doesn't make any difference to your effects. It just looks maybe a little cleaner. Okay, and if couple of other notes here. So there are these pixel trees. So here, all in a row, that are just zigzags of pixels. Nothing we can do to these, and in fact, you can probably only use, in the sequence that William sent, he was just turning these on solid colors, which makes sense, using them essentially as dumb RGB, even though they're pixels. You could do a twinkle on these, but most other effects aren't going to do much in terms of making an interesting pattern. One approach some people take is to create a group with just one prop in it, and then they create the group with a preview arrangement so that the pixels are then all aligned in a matrix. But the problem with that would be is that if we let's zoom in on this. So if we undo, if we so on this pixel tree, mini tree here, if we drew an imaginary grid over this, and which is essentially what the preview, using a preview arrangement in a group does, it probably wouldn't work. It wouldn't yield, your effects wouldn't look like you'd hope they'd to, because it would only be good if your pixels on the screen here were exactly arranged in the way the pixels were in reality on the real tree. And in a zigzag, that's just not realistic. So you're not going to end up, this is a fine representation of the tree, but it's not necessarily exactly how it's going to be. So 1, 2, 3, however many pixels we've got, say we had 12 pixels across here, that may be 11 or 10 or 13 in the real tree, and that makes a huge difference on how your effects end up looking. So if you were to try to put this in a group with a preview arrangement. So you're kind of stuck on this tree with using solid colors or using twinkle that's, you could run we'll look at that a little bit later maybe. So that's that. We've fixed the matrix there. Okay, here we are at the, these wreaths are pixels. And let me show you if we turn pixel numbers on. I'm just temporarily going to make the size of the pixel smaller so you can see the numbers. So you can see the numbers run on the outside of the wreath, 1 to 25, and then 26 through 50 on the inside of the wreath. Well, we have a wreath shape in S5, but it assumes the pixel numbers, that a wreath is wired kind of as using the numbers that show here. It'd go 1 to 26, 27 to 2 to 3 to 28. So it goes in and out is the wiring that the wreath shape assumes if you have pixels. So we can't use the wreath shape to replace this prop because it's wired in a way that the native wreath in S5 doesn't understand. So I'll show. So what can you do with that? Probably nothing right now. I mean, you can still run some effects on this wreath, and we can look at a few. And kind of the transfer. So kind of one of my premises for this meeting is that we would take this preview and kind of like we did on the arch, I could change the shape, but I'm not going to delete any props or add any new ones. Because when you do that, that opens you up to, when you then open your sequence, it knows that props have been deleted and will archive those props in your sequence. So I'm trying not to do that during this demo. So, but I'll tell you one of the cool things coming up in the new release next week is that when you do delete something and replace it with another prop. So in this case, let me show you what I would do with this wreath. I would use an obscure command over here called copy prop to advanced shape. And what it's going to do is it can take any shape and copy it to this advanced shape. And from what shows on the screen, an advanced shape is kind of like the bulb shape. You can move where each, you can still move where each pixel goes, but what's unique about it is you can change what the effect buffer looks like. So here's the effect buffer for this wreath, and the pixels are all just in a row. But in reality, what we want to do is we have two circles going on here. So if I add a row and then I take 26 through 50 and I'm going to cut and now go over here to beginning of the second row and do paste, Now 1 is lined up with 26, 2 is lined up with 27, and so forth, just like the pixels are in the circle. So if we change the width back to 25, now this is what's going to our effect is going to do this. When we create effects, this is the buffer it's going to see. So if we have an effect that moves from left to right, 1 and 26 are going to be lit up together, and then 2 and 27, then 3 and 28. And so that'll go around the wreath. So if I click Save here, and notice it's created a new prop with a -advanced as a suffix, and click Save. Now it creates the prop right on top of the other one, but I'm going to move that over just a little bit so you can see that we actually have two props here, Wreath 5 and Wreath 5 Advanced. And you can see that the pixel numbers are in exactly the same order. So the pixel order, I haven't changed the way the wreath is wired in any way. All I've changed is the way the effects will get applied to the wreath. All right, so I'm going to leave this wreath here, and when we go into the effect generator, we can see the difference on that makes. Okay, so now let's zoom out, and we've got now some of these. So arch left, that created a actually a one line matrix. So it created it as a vertical matrix. So when you apply effects to this particular prop, you're going to want things to move up and down. And if you want them to do something different, then you'd have to change that or create a group and change the orientation of that prop. Let's look at this cool candy cane spinner here. So one thing you'll notice is, and you can see the pixel numbers here going from, actually you could see it when I was zoomed out a little bit better. So 1 to 25, 1 starting at the end, 25 at the bottom of the candy cane. So we do have a candy cane, native candy cane shape in S5, but you can't wire it from the end to the bottom. It assumes wiring goes the other direction. So another case where we can't replace this with the native S5 shape. But what we can do here, so we've got 8 candy canes in this spinner. They're all wired the same way. And so what we can do is take this, we've got a group for the candy cane spinner. And once again, it's set to use preview. But what we really want to do, well, first of all, let's look at one of these candy canes and what's the layout for one of these candy canes. So let's look at the layout. So it's horizontal, right? So first pixel on the left, last pixel on the right. And if I go to another one, right, it's the same way. So if I go back to the group then we want to stack these vertically. And if I do that, then we get a size 25 by 8. So it's 8 candy canes. And because they're in a circle, it doesn't matter. There's really not a top and a bottom. So doesn't really matter which order they're in since they're in a circle. But we do now have it arranged so it's 25 by 8, and we'll be able to do some really cool effects with that. So that fixes the candy cane prop. Okay. William, did you have any other issues or things that you wanted to look at with this preview?
You've covered about everything that I had. Just that thing when I just did a little bit of playing around with it, I wasn't going. Nothing was looking correct, so it looked like you're fixing all that.
Yeah.
And my second issue was with the on the left, where everything is listed.
Oh, yes.
Why things are listed all different kind of ways, and I wasn't exactly sure why some stuff came over one way, some stuff come over another. Again, and just to preface, I did a little bit of playing around with it after I imported it, so this is not 100% after import, because the spare matrix was imported, but the 2 garage matrices I added to this year.
Oh, okay.
But the spare was imported however it came over, because it never looked correctly. And then all this on the side, most of all this was imported other than the garage matrix. And just some stuff. I think I make the groups maybe after the fact, because it all came over all kind of ways. I tried to clean it up, and it just seemed like I couldn't get everything to be the same. Like the arches, I don't understand what that means on the arches.
Right. So the items listed in blue are groups. So, and the items in the black text are the actual props. So groups are blue. The props are in black, and the so that just makes them easy to distinguish. During the visualizer import, visualizer uses a little bit, in S4 uses a little bit different terminology. It has fixtures and props are a collection of fixtures. And so when it gets imported into S5, the visualizer fixtures become a S5 prop, and the visualizer props become S5 groups. So if you can keep that straight. So you probably had an arch number 1 fixture and an arch number 1 group in the visualizer. For the arches, you probably don't need, there's no need for the group. So you could go ahead and delete the group for the arch, because the arch itself is enough to create effects with. So now what we may want to do, I'll delete those. Oh, did the wrong one. Undo. There we go. Four and arch 5, the group arch 5. Okay, so now we've got 5 arches. Oh, we've got a channel conflict now because of I created the wreath 5 I've duplicated. That's the only issue there. What we may want to do, if we zoom out here, by the way, like a lot of other programs, you can hold the control key down and then use your mouse wheel to zoom. So it's a lot faster. And then you can use the shift and the mouse wheel to go left and right. So one thing, I have arches in the front of my display, and what I like to do is run an effect that runs across all of the arches, as if they're, and so you'll get things bouncing along across all of the arches. So it's nice to have an arch group. So one shortcut when you're creating a group is to select the items that you want to be in the group. And then when you click Add and Group, then those 5 items are already selected for you. You don't have to go searching through them through this long list. So now we're just going to call this arches, and these we're going to want these to be a horizontal stack. We want them to go line up end to end horizontally. All right. So now each arch is 32 pixels. So now we've got 160 pixels by 1. So when we do an effect that moves left or right, it'll go across all 160 pixels. Okay, so that's a handy group to have. All right, so
hey man, one other thing on the with the list, some of them, it seems like I could go all the way down to each individual pixel and even see the color like we used to do in Nest 4, and some of them I couldn't. I didn't understand that either.
Well, we'll look at that. That's in the sequencer, I assume, right? You're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll pull up your sequence in just a little bit. Okay. So now we've fixed the matrices. We've created a group for the arches. We fixed the spinners, and we created one extra prop. We duplicated one of the wreaths. So one other thing that's fun is you've got, especially in a display like this where you've got a fair number of pixels, is to create a whole house group. And so let's go here and you can just select everything, right? And now we're going to add a group, and we're going to call this whole house. And here's where we want to use the preview, and we probably don't want to use lowest resolution, but we want to keep an eye on this size. Kind of think about, because the higher, it does say lowest resolution, faster means it's faster to render. So when you're in the sequencer and you put effects on this, the more you move this slider up towards the top, the slower it is going to be to render. So at this point, it's dividing it into almost 100 by 100, 100 horizontally and 100 vertically. So into a virtual grid, maybe we want to go one more, right, and see how that looks. So in preview for my house, I actually have two whole house groups. I have one that's lower resolution and one that's higher resolution, just so I can kind of compare the two. And and there's not really any reason to include the groups here. It's just going to take longer to, well, I was trying to think if it would take any longer to render. Don't think it'll make a difference. So anyway, so we'll call that our whole house group and save that. And now let's save that. And so again, that was the copy. And now, well, first, before I go into the sequence, let's just take a look at the motion effect generator, because when you don't have the motion effect generator acts a little differently when there's no sequence open versus when there is a sequence open. And so if you open the motion effect generator and there's no sequences open, you can choose any preview here and any prop and swap around, and it's good for just testing. So that's kind of what I want to do here. You'll notice there's the new thing for the next release is going to be the effect generator. The toolbar's been rearranged just a little bit so that this resets your parameters for an effect. This is everything to do with palettes, and you have a new copy and paste feature here that allows you to copy from the left to the right. I'm not going to go into that today, because that's we're really talking about Williams preview and sequence here. So there, I just went back to the default palette. And now let's, if we select bars, right, so let's make the bulbs a little bigger so you can see what's going on. Let's make that red and white. It's not rendering very fast, I guess, because I'm sharing my screen, so it doesn't look very smooth. Let's go to the, it's the original. Let's go to the copy. Well, actually, there is a difference between, there. Now you can see the 3, 4, and 5 are the old, are what got imported from Visualizer, and Arch 1 is the native S5 shape, and there's no difference there. But now if we go to the arches, now you can see you can run an effect across all of the arches. So if you want to do something fun like that, that works pretty well. Right, so you can do all sorts of fun things with that. Let's look at your let's look at the candy cane spinner. Isn't that cool? I like that. So and what I want on spinners, spiral effect looks really good on spinners. Let's take the black off. Right. So you can, that is really cool. I want a candy cane spinner. That's nice. All right. So, and let's check out your matrices. So there's now your left matrix. So let's do a let's just do a pinwheel or something there, so you can see that your matrix is operating correctly. There's the one on the right. And if we go, was the spare window, was the other one, spare window matrix. There's your spare window matrix. So those are all working the way they should now. Okay, so let's see. So let's look at, let's, the pixel mini trees. So I told you there's not much. So maybe some of these things do something interesting. So maybe there's more than just twinkle that you could use. Bars. So, but it's going to look totally different than any other type of prop that you have. But that's where experimenting with some of these effects, you can end up something that you might want to show your audience. So that's the pixel tree. Now let's look at our wreaths. Where are our wreaths? Sorry, I can't remember. There they are, RGB wreath. Okay. So let's look at 5 versus 5 advanced. Okay, so what's happening here, and let's make the bulb size a little bigger so you can see better what's going on. So the so here really the wreath is treated as one long string, and it starts at the outer bottom, goes all the way around, and then goes to the inner. So continues. So maybe a butterfly is going to look okay, but like bars, not so much. Bars looks okay actually if you have 2 colors. But now let's look at compare that to what happens when you've used the advanced shape. So now you start to get effects that make sense. So this, I've got H expand here. As long as you go left or right. Right, so now effects work more like you'd expect. So if you do a curtain, right, so, or even a garland, if you do left to right. Right, so a lot of these scanners going to look pretty good. We need to. Right, so using the advanced shape to set your buffer up so that the effects move in the way that you expect can make a big difference. So so that's that. is why you might want to use an advanced shape. Okay, so that, see how we're doing on time. We're just about done. So William had asked, here's his sequence. And I don't have his media file, so I don't know how many of you use this, but you right click on the timing bar, and then you can zoom to a reasonable spot. Because I don't have the music media file for this, usually when I get one, obviously you would have, as a user using this, you would have the media file. When I get one and I don't have the media file, I use this convert to animation. Right now it'll let me play even without that. And when I forgot in the, this is where, okay, so let's do one thing. So let's now assign a different preview. Now we're going to use our copy. And everything should work just fine, other than we've added one prop. We've added the Wreath 5 Advanced. And here's a new this is a new screen, and I think everyone's going to love this. So when you change a preview or you open a sequence where the preview is changed, it tells you this is in 550. It's going to tell you what is about to be archived, what's about to be added. So you have advanced warning. If you've replaced some props, so let's say I was replacing Wreath 5 Advanced with Wreath 5. There's can't do that. If I had deleted Wreath 5, it would have shown up on old items to be removed. And here I could have a chance I could then match up my Wreath 5 Advanced with the old Wreath 5, and my sequencing wouldn't be lost. So I think people are really going to like this. Here are the 5 arch groups that we deleted, and it's telling me now in switching previews that those are going to be deleted from the sequence. I'm adding 2 new groups, arches and whole house, which that makes sense because we just added those to the preview. We're adding Wreath 5 Advanced. So that all looks good. And there's a confirmation of that. So now I've switched previews. If we want to, here's the playback window. And no music, but you can see everything's playing. I wish I had the music because I have a feeling this is a really cool sequence. But anyway, so
I sent it to your email.
Oh, okay, thank you. So now you asked about some things like, I was going to show you. So like your pixel mini trees here. So they have, you've done effects on each. I'm going to close my previews window over here or hide it. So you've done this. It looks like you've done the same color on every pixel. So these are just all essentially, you're doing solid colors on your mini pixel trees. And so this will work just fine. But you could reduce the size of your sequence, just one as an alternative. Here I've hit the R key to select a row, or you can do change here, select rows. So now when I click on a row, it selects the entire row automatically. And I'm going to copy. And now I'm going to click the row above it, which is the motion effect row. I'm going to paste. And now it's created effects, motion effects. These are all color wash effects that mimic the, and are exactly the same as the channel effect. Since all the channels on this prop were doing the same thing, now we've accomplished the same thing with, let's take this back to cells, with the motion effect. So let me scroll over to, so if I double click on this one, you can see it goes from white to black. And if I double click on this one, then it's solid red. And if we double click on this one, the red fades out to black, right? So it is faithfully copied what was in the one motion effect row or in the RGB channel row into the motion effect row just by copying and pasting. So now we don't need all these channel rows here. You could keep them if you were going to use them to do something, but you don't need, in this particular sequence where all the pixels were doing the same thing, you don't need that. And I could right click here and say remove channel level from pixel prop. If we do that, so it's going to remove the sequencing on those channels. Proceed, okay. Right, so now this pixel tree is going to do exactly the same thing, but it's doing it with motion effects. And the size of your sequence file will be a lot smaller. Or smaller by the amount that you've got on that pixel tree anyway. And you could do that for all the pixel trees. And then you can use motion effects to do other cool things on those pixel trees. But to go back, then you enable channel level on pixel prop. So I think, William, to answer your question, that's kind of what you're seeing is by default, props that use pixels just have motion effect rows if you've got a pro license. But you can go to doing channel level on those pixel props by right-clicking on the name and selecting enable channel level. Right, and so now if we expand, there's all the channel levels, but we don't need that on this because we're doing everything now with motion effects. We don't need those, and those can be deleted. Okay, does that help, William?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the one other thing I wanted to do, let's look here on whole house. So insert motion effect. Oh, it's set to arches. Why isn't it giving me? That looks like a bug. Oh, because maybe I was on. Where's whole house? Oh. Add modify motion effects rows. That's the issue. So now we've got a motion effect row. We can add effects, right? So now if I insert motion effect, there's the entire display. And, if we do a pinwheel, right, you get a pinwheel across your whole display. Or, bars. It looked pretty cool. So, gives you a totally different look for your display, and even the props that have single color, traditional lights on them, if they match what the color is you're displaying for the effect, they'll turn on also. So you can kind of see those kind of blink on and off here on some of those traditional props. Right, so that looks pretty good. Right, so anyway, we're about got started a little late, so we've run our hours. Or any other questions about what you've seen tonight?
I don't have any. I really appreciate it.
Anybody else? What about, do people want to do this again? Is this helpful? Feel free to unmute if you want. Anybody? Aubrey, did you learn anything new? Oh, everyone's muted or asleep or something. Maybe I put everyone asleep.
Hey, man, I know we're out of time, but I didn't fully understand when you overlaid the wreath. So
what we did there was we created, there's this command that says copy whichever selected prop you have to a new prop that has an advanced shape, a shape called the advanced shape. And the advanced shape can represent any other shape, actually. But then it gives you some flexibility to move things around. And so what we did was we took your that wreath and we arranged the pixels in the way that the effects are going to get applied to the pixels so that they were in 2 rows, just like you have 2 rings around the wreath. And so then when you run effects, they run symmetrically around the wreath on both rings of your wreath. And so that's what we did. I'll send you a copy of this. I'll export the preview and send it to you.
Okay, thank you. And you couldn't do that with the mini trees the way I did it, because they are just the pixels just wrapped around the tree. But I didn't chime in when I wrapped the pixels and the wraps in the sequence on the preview match. So just every one of the trees, I was painstakingly put each pixel the same place on all trees, and like when zigzag was at the bottom, half the tree, and then when it went up, that's the back of it come up.
Really? Wow. So, you are talented.
So each zigzag goes with the tree, goes in the front, back. That's what I did, because I didn't want to look straight. I see other pixel trees that are straight down, look like a matrix. I wanted to look like regular lights. So that's how that was what I was trying to do anyway.
Yeah. So you could, if it's accurate, your preview then accurately matches what's on the tree, then you
Yes.
could create a group that just contains that tree and set the arrangement to preview, and then you could do things that, if you could run things up and down the tree, and rather than spiraling up the tree, they'd look more like a regular pixel tree would,
Yeah, I
where
understand.
all the pixels are neatly arranged.